From small steps to big ideas, language is at the heart of who we are. We talk it through, we hear you out, we write the words, we read out loud. It's finding the way, exploring new places, discovering new people, and making the difference. It's stories to hear, tales to tell, opening doors and opening minds. Don't just write, communicate. Don't just talk, discuss, debate. Announce yourself, make a noise, speak your mind, and prove your skills to the world. So spread your wings, expand your horizons. It's a big world out there, and this is your journey. With us, you'll be inspired, you'll be supported, you'll be your best. This is more than learning English. These are your hopes and dreams. We are Cambridge Assessment English, and we're here for every learner, every step of the way.
Today we are here. One of the presentations, the presentation from Ian will be about interviewing. So we just thought we'll play a small video on interviewing in English, some tips for you to take home. You can watch this video later also. I'll share the link for the video with you.
Hello, my name's Jared. Today we're going to look at tips for job interviews in English. First, practice. You only get a few minutes to impress the interview panel, so make sure that you practice the answers to common interview questions. Ask a friend to play the role of an interviewer. Answer the questions and get some feedback from your friend. Try again until you're happy with your responses. Next, make sure that you research the company you are applying to. If you know someone who already works there, maybe you could ask them about working for the company. If you don't know anyone, you could do some online research to find out what kind of company they are. Also, research the latest developments in the relevant business area. This sort of information will really impress the interviewers and also show that you have initiative. Our next tip is to look the part. Appearances do matter in a job interview. It is important that you look smart and professional. Make sure your clothes are appropriate. First appearances are important. Make sure that you smile and make eye contact with the interviewers. Don't forget to speak clearly and not too fast. Give yourself time to think about your responses. Lastly, don't forget to ask questions too. This shows that you're genuinely interested in the position and the company. Do ask questions about professional development and career prospects, for example. If you're hoping to use English for work, a Cambridge English Business Certificate could help you succeed. To find out more, visit our website. Good luck with getting that job. Thanks for watching.
As Mansi from Scope, Ms. Mansi Sarwat from Scope has joined us. Welcome, ma'am, on the platform. We have about 700 to 1,000 students right now with us. I think just for everybody's information, Cambridge and Scope have tied up to bring the Lingua Skill exams from Cambridge to the students of Gujarat. So every student in Gujarat can watch the Lingua Skill exam is yours. So I'm just going to play a video about the recognition for Lingua Skill that's available. If you do a Lingua Skill, what is the benefit you get or how beneficial it would be? So a company called Air France recognizes it. So just listen to it from the training manager at Air France.
I work with Air France and I'm responsible for training in areas as varied as office automation, increasing efficiency at work, among others, and languages are also part of my scope. And to carry out these projects, I lead a team of 20 people spread over 3 training centers in Paris. For an international airline, English is very, very important, as you can imagine. We use English tests for our recruitment in the first place, and when the job applicant does not already have a recognized certificate. And we also use them throughout their career for internal promotion and expatriation. And we demand different levels of English from our staff depending on what job they have in the company. So, for example, to be a supervisor or a manager, you must prove that you are at least a B1. And for a flight attendant, for example, we would need to go from B1 to C1 to become a chief purser. First of all, because of Cambridge University, which has an excellent reputation, and there is absolutely no discussion about this. And LinguaSkill brings us the benefits and even more. First of all, I talked about the reliability of Cambridge University. And secondly, the test is fast, which is what we need right now. We particularly appreciate that the test takes place online, which is very, very important for us, any time of the day, at any place. We have been using online tests for about 10 years, like I said before, and we couldn't possibly go back. A test today has to be online. And in addition, our employees cannot cheat because the reading and listening test is adaptive, meaning the questions vary according to the level of the test taker. And our experience shows that Cambridge tests are very robust and reliable. We have had no complaints whatsoever. Transitioning to LinguaSkill opened up new possibilities for us. We have a very wide variety of personnel at Air France, so it seemed to us that switching to a general test would be better for us. So we chose the LinguaSkill general test, assessing the mastery of general English, because it was more suitable for us, for the whole staff, I mean. So that's what we chose, and that's what we're using now, with a lot of satisfaction again. And regarding the skills that are assessed, thanks to the artificial intelligence the test uses, it is now very simple for us to evaluate not only reading and listening, but also speaking and writing without the intervention of an examiner. And we will not hesitate to evaluate these skills on a case-by-case basis if the need arises.
Thank you very much, first of all, for arranging such a good webinar for the students of Gujarat. And I welcome you all to the webinar series, which is arranged by Scope and Cambridge. Scope is working under a higher education department, Government of Gujarat. First of all, મારા વિદ્યાર્થીઓને really આવકારું છું. I want to તમારી સાથે connect થવા. મને એમ લાગે છે કે મારે ગુજરાતીમાં તમને આવકારવા જોઈએ. So welcome you all. અને આપણો સ્કોપ એટલે સોસાયટી ફોર ક્રિએશન ઓફ ઓપોર્ચ્યુનિટી થ્રુ પ્રોફિશિયન્સી ઇન ઇંગ્લિશ. ગવર્મેન્ટ ઓફ ગુજરાતનું આટલું સરસ ઇનિશિયેટિવ છે કે જેમણે કેમ્બ્રિજ સાથે ટાઈઅપ કરેલું છે અને કેમ્બ્રિજની વિવિધ એક્ઝામ્સ અમે લોકો કન્ડક્ટ કરીએ છીએ, લાઈક CEPT, LinguaSkill. CEPT મીન્સ કેમ્બ્રિજ ઇંગ્લિશ પ્લેસમેન્ટ ટેસ્ટ. એ તમને બતાવે છે કે તમારું લેવલ ક્યાં છે, તમે કયા લેવલનું અંગ્રેજી જાણો છો, અને પછી તમે LinguaSkill ટ્રેનિંગ લ્યો છો અને LinguaSkill એક્ઝામ આપો છો, તો તમે કયા લેવલે રીચ થાવ છો, that you can come to know. So આટલું સરસ ઇનિશિયેટિવ જો ગુજરાત ગવર્મેન્ટે લીધેલું હોય તો મને એમ લાગે છે કે બધા વિદ્યાર્થીઓએ આ વસ્તુનો લાભ લેવો જ જોઈએ. અને કોઈ પણ વિદ્યાર્થીને, કોઈ પણ સ્ટુડન્ટ્સને જ્યારે પોતાના ચારિત્ર્ય ઘડતર માટે શિક્ષણ તો સૌથી પ્રથમ અને પાયાનું પગથિયું છે, અને એના માટે અલગ અલગ વિષયોનું તમારે અધ્યયન કરવું પડે. એના માટે આજના દુનિયાથી કદમથી કદમ મિલાવવા માટે તમારે અપડેટેડ રહેવું જોઈએ. અને એના માટે ગુજરાત સરકારના શિક્ષણ વિભાગ દ્વારા સ્કોપના પ્રોગ્રામ દ્વારા યુવાનોનું અંગ્રેજી ભાષા ઉપરનું પ્રભુત્વ વધે, એના થકી રોજગારીની ઉજ્જવળ તકો પ્રાપ્ત થાય તેવો ઉદ્દેશ રહેલો છે. તો વિદ્યાર્થી પાસે હું એટલી આશા રાખું કે એટલીસ્ટ આપણને ઘર બેઠા, જ્યારે અત્યારે કોવિડના સંજોગોમાં તમે રૂબરૂ કોલેજ નથી જઈ શકતા અથવા કંઈ તમને નોલેજ જોઈએ છે ઘરે બેઠા, તો ગુજરાત સરકારનું આ આટલું સારું ઇનિશિયેટિવ છે, તો તેનો મેક્સિમમ લાભ લેવો જોઈએ. અને તમારા વિદ્યાર્થી બીજા ફ્રેન્ડ્સ હોય એને પણ તમે આ અલગ અલગ વેબિનારની તમે લિંક શેર કરો, જેથી કરીને મેક્સિમમ સ્ટુડન્ટ્સ આપણા પ્રોગ્રામનો ફાયદો લઈ શકે. જ્યારે તમે એજ્યુકેશન તમારું ગ્રેજ્યુએશન કે પીજી તમારું પૂરું કરી અને તમે જ્યારે માર્કેટમાં પ્રવેશો છો, રાઈટ, ત્યારે સૌથી વધારે ઇમ્પોર્ટન્ટ વસ્તુ છે કે સીવી રાઇટિંગ, હાઉ ટુ રાઇટ સીવી, તમારો રેઝ્યુમે કેવી રીતે લખશો, તમે ઇન્ટરવ્યુ કેવી રીતે ફેસ કરશો. આ બધા પ્રોબ્લેમ્સ સ્ટુડન્ટ્સને નડતા હોય છે અને કાઇન્ડ ઓફ ફોબિયા આપણા સ્ટુડન્ટ્સમાં જોવા મળતો હોય છે કે હું કેવી રીતે આન્સર આપીશ, શું બોલીશ. તો એના માટે ગુજરાત સરકારે આટલો સરસ તમને વેબિનાર તમને ઘર આંગણે પ્રોવાઈડ કરેલો છે. વેબિનારની આખી સિરીઝ છે 5 દિવસની, જેમાં વિવિધ વિષયો સાથે અમે તમને માહિતગાર કરાવવાના છે. લાઈક તમે ગઈકાલે નેગોશિએટિંગ સ્કિલ્સ આપણે સાંભળી કે કઈ રીતે તમારે નેગોશિએટ કરવું જોઈએ. ઇમેલિંગ સ્કિલ્સ વિશે આપણે જોશું. આજનો આપણો વિષય છે સીવી રાઇટિંગ અને ઇન્ટરવ્યુ સ્કિલ્સ. તો તમને થોડું નોલેજ તો હશે જ કે કેવી રીતે તમારે સીવી લખવું જોઈએ, ઇન્ટરવ્યુમાં કેવી રીતે આન્સર આપવો જોઈએ, પણ પ્રેક્ટિકલ નોલેજ જે આપણને આજે ઇયાન કાવલી આપણને આપવાના છે, દેટ વિલ બી રિયલી યુઝફુલ ટુ યુ. અને હું આશા રાખું કે બધા સ્ટુડન્ટ્સ આ પ્રોગ્રામ જે 5 દિવસનો આપણો વેબિનાર સિરીઝ છે એનો મેક્સિમમ લાભ લે અને મારા ગુજરાતના વિદ્યાર્થીઓ આનો બહોળો લાભ લઈ અને પ્રેક્ટિકાલિટીમાં જ્યારે એ લોકો માર્કેટમાં જવાના છે ત્યારે આ વસ્તુનો લાભ લે અને પોતે સર્વોચ્ચ શિખર પ્રાપ્ત કરે એવી મારી આશા છે. એટલે સીવી રાઇટિંગમાં ઘણી વખત આપણે બહુ લાંબા સીવીઝ લખતા હોય છે. એકચ્યુઅલી સીવી રાઇટિંગ શુડ બી લાઈક એકદમ ક્રિસ્પ હોવું જોઈએ, ટુ ધ પોઈન્ટ હોવું જોઈએ અને તમારી બધી જ બાબતો અંદર સંકળાયેલી હોવી જોઈએ. અને તમારે પૂછવું જોઈએ કે તમારી જોબ આપનારને શું જોઈએ છે એક્ઝેક્ટલી, તો એ જ પ્રમાણેનું તમારે એમને સીવીમાં તમારે પ્રેઝન્ટ કરવું જોઈએ કે મારી આ ક્વોલિફિકેશન છે, મેં આટલું એક્સ્ટ્રા કોકરિક્યુલર એક્ટિવિટીઝમાં ભાગ લીધેલો છે. અને ઘણી બધી વસ્તુ એ સિવાયની પણ હશે કે જે આપણને આજે વેબિનાર થ્રુ જાણવા મળશે. પછી છે ઇન્ટરવ્યુ સ્કિલ્સ, કે ઇન્ટરવ્યુ સ્કિલ્સમાં સૌથી વધારે આપણને ફોબિયા હોય છે કે કેવી રીતે આપણે રિપ્લાય કરશું. સૌથી પહેલો તો ક્વેશ્ચન આવશે કે ટેલ મી અબાઉટ યોર સેલ્ફ. એમને ઇન જનરલ આપણને કોઈ પૂછે તો આપણા વિશે જણાવવાનું આપણને બહુ ગમતું હોય છે કે ટેલ મી અબાઉટ યોર સેલ્ફ. બટ જ્યારે તમે ઇન્ટરવ્યુમાં જાઓ છો then if you are asked કે tell me about yourself, તો આપણે કન્ફ્યુઝ થઈ જઈએ છીએ કે શું બોલવું, કેવી રીતે પ્રેઝન્ટ કરવી પોતાની જાતને, રાઈટ. અને એમાં ઘણી વખત ઇંગ્લિશમાં જ્યારે કમ્યુનિકેશન કરવાનું થાય ત્યારે આપણે ઘણા બધા ખોટા ઉપયોગ કરતા હોઈએ છીએ કે ફોર એક્ઝામ્પલ ગ્રીટ સૌથી પહેલા કરવું જોઈએ, તો ઘણા વિદ્યાર્થીઓને ગુડ મોર્નિંગ ક્યારે કહેવું, ગુડ આફ્ટરનૂન ક્યારે કહેવું, ગુડ ઇવનિંગ ક્યારે કહેવું એ પણ નોલેજ નથી હોતું. ફોર એક્ઝામ્પલ બિફોર 12 noon we may say good morning. 12 noon થી 4:30 વાગ્યા સુધીનો બપોરનો ટાઈમ છે, એટ ધેટ ટાઈમ યુ કેન સે ગુડ આફ્ટરનૂન. અને 4:30 પછીનો જે ટાઈમ છે ત્યારે ગુડ ઇવનિંગ કહેવું જોઈએ. આવી નાની નાની વસ્તુઓ જો આપણે ધ્યાનમાં રાખીએ તો એક આપણે ખોટા પેલા બ્લન્ડરથી આપણે બચી શકીએ છીએ અને આપણે એક સારી ઇમ્પ્રેશન ઇન્ટરવ્યુ વખતે આપણે પોતાની આપી શકીએ છીએ. ફર્સ્ટ ઇમ્પ્રેશન ઇઝ ધ લાસ્ટ ઇમ્પ્રેશન. જો પહેલી જ વખત તમે ગ્રીટ કરવામાં જો તમે ખોટું બોલ્યા ગુડ આફ્ટરનૂન ની બદલે ઇફ યુ સે ગુડ મોર્નિંગ, તો એક પગથિયું તમે ત્યાં ચૂકી જાઓ છો. તો વિદ્યાર્થીઓની નાની નાની ઘણી બાબતો હોય છે કે તમારે તમારું નામ બોલવાનું હોય છે, વિથ સ્માઇલિંગ ફેસ તમારે બોલવું જોઈએ, વિથ પ્રાઉડ યુ શુડ ટેલ યોર નેમ. તમારી હોબીઝ નું પૂછે ત્યારે તમારે રિયલ સેન્સમાં તમારી જે હોબીઝ હશે એ તમારે જણાવવી જોઈએ, નહીં કે સો કોલ્ડ ગુડ હોબીઝ જે કહેવાતી હોય એના વિશે તમે બોલો. જે બોલો જે તમારી પાસે નોલેજ છે, જેનું તમને જ્ઞાન છે, એ જ વસ્તુ તમારે પીરસવા. જ્યારે પેનલિસ્ટ હશે એ વિશેનો જ તમને વધારે ને વધારે નોલેજ ડેપ્થમાં પૂછતા જશે. તો નેવર સે લાય ઇન ઇન્ટરવ્યુ. તમારી પાસે જે નોલેજ છે એ જ પીરસવાનું છે વિથ કોન્ફિડન્સ. તો આવા નાના નાના ઘણા બધા પોઈન્ટ્સ છે કે જે આપણે ધ્યાનમાં રાખવા જોઈએ. એ સિવાય કેમ્બ્રિજ તરફથી આજે ઇયાન કાવલી છે આપણને ઘણા બધા નવા પોઈન્ટ્સ જે આપણે ધ્યાનમાં રાખવા જોઈએ ડ્યુરિંગ ઇન્ટરવ્યુ, ડ્યુરિંગ રાઇટિંગ સીવી, આ બધી જ વસ્તુ આપણને જણાવશે. અને આટલી સરસ ગોલ્ડન ઓપોર્ચ્યુનિટી આપણને ગુજરાત સરકાર જ્યારે આપી રહી છે ત્યારે સ્ટુડન્ટ્સ, હું રિયલી એપ્રિશિએટ કરું છું કે સરકાર આટલો બધો તમારી પાસે પ્રયત્ન કરે છે, એનો લાભ લ્યો અને તમારા મિત્રોને પણ આ વસ્તુ વિશે જણાવો. પ્લસ સ્કોપની વેબસાઇટ ઉપર પણ તમે જઈ શકો, અમારું ફેસબુક પેજ છે. એટ ધ એન્ડ ઓફ ધ વેબિનાર જોશવા સર તમને બતાવશે કે કઈ લિંક ઉપર તમે જઈ શકો. પ્લસ હમણાં થોડા સમય પહેલા જ અમે એક સિરીઝ, ઇંગ્લિશ લર્નિંગની એક આખી સિરીઝ અમે બાયસેક થ્રુ અમે લોન્ચ કરી હતી. એમાં દરેક ટોપિક એટલા ઝીણવટપૂર્વક તમને સમજાવેલા હતા અને એ બધું જ તમે સ્કોપના ફેસબુક પેજ ઉપર ટૂંક જ સમયમાં તમે ફરીથી એ બધા વિડીયોઝનું પ્રસારણ તમે જોઈ શકશો અને એના ઉપરથી પણ તમારા ઘણા બધા કોન્સેપ્ટ્સ, ગ્રામરના કોન્સેપ્ટ્સ તમે ક્લિયર કરી શકશો. તો આશા રાખું છું કે આજનો વેબિનાર પણ આપણને બહુ જ યુઝફુલ રહે અને મેક્સિમમ સ્ટુડન્ટ્સ આનો લાભ લે એ આશા સાથે વિરમું છું અને ઓવર ટુ જોશવા.
Ma'am, thank you very much for the time and coming online. And so we are going to start the webinar now. My colleague Ian Colley is a teacher of English, and he's been teaching English for many years. So he's going to talk to you all about how to write a CV and how to present yourself in an interview. This, we hope, will be useful. At the end of it, both ma'am and I will be fielding questions from the students.
Well, hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar, which is focusing on preparing for work. For those of you who have not been on one of our webinars before, my name is Ian Corley and I am the Global Product Manager for the Cambridge Assessment English Business English Certificate, otherwise known as BEC. Just to remind you all that this is one of a series of webinars. We've got one more webinar on negotiation skills coming up on Friday morning. And for those of you who've been able to attend all the webinars, you're going to be receiving a certificate of attendance. So thank you all for very much for coming today. And let's start today's presentation. I think this one is particularly exciting because preparing for work is a really exciting time for everyone. I can still remember the feeling of going to work for the first time, and it is a very new experience for everyone. And I hope in today's presentation we can help you to feel confident about applying for jobs and preparing for work. So just to give you an overview of what we're going to be doing today, we're going to be looking at some job advertisements and decoding what exactly the language of those job adverts means and how we can apply. Understanding what your skills mean and how you can describe them to a potential employer. What's the link between job responsibilities and skills? We'll look at a little bit of that. We'll have a look at how you can write a CV and the kind of information that needs to be included. We'll spend some time looking at interviews, and I'll give you some hints and tips based on my experiences. And then we'll go on to talk a little bit about BEC and having great communication skills. So let's start. Are you currently looking for a job, or will you be looking for a job soon? For those of you, we live in difficult times, obviously, with the COVID pandemic, and this has affected the way that recruiters are recruiting for staff and probably the way that you would apply for jobs. But certainly, I'm sure in the near future, when you finish your studies, you will be looking for work. So, you have to think about. Let's start by thinking about where you would go initially to look for a job. And there are a number of different places. It might be that you have campus recruitment at the university or the college where you're studying, and recruiters will come in every year looking to give you information about the companies that they work in and do some initial interviews with students who are interested. It might be that you go to specific recruitment websites or a recruitment agency. It might be that you are looking at the newspaper or the newspaper's website, or you could even use social media or software like LinkedIn to find a job. There's a multitude of places that you can look. But certainly one thing that's really important wherever you look for a job is that you have to look at the job advert, and the word decoding here really means try to understand exactly what it is that the recruiter is looking for. So the first thing that you need to think about really is, what does the job title mean? Sometimes the job title is not really related to the job that you will actually be doing, and quite often quite senior language can be used to advertise a job that might be quite junior. I've seen lots of job adverts with the word ambassador in them, and obviously an ambassador is a very senior role, but often ambassadors within a company might be quite a junior position. So it's important that you try to work out or can understand what the job title means. Then you have to have a look at the specific qualifications and expertise that's required. Do you have this? Can you prove it? You'll also need to understand what the responsibilities of the job are and the pay and conditions. And often when you're doing this decoding exercise, the salary will indicate the level of seniority within the job. Skills will indicate the type of person that they're looking for, and the language that's used in the job advert will often represent the company's corporate culture. So it's important that you understand the language they're using and that you use that when you make your job application. So we're going to have a look now at some of these topics. We're going to have a look at some examples of job adverts, what they say and what they don't say, and how we can interpret job adverts. So I've got a good example for you here. Let's have a look together. So it says jobs, 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 call center and BPO jobs. We've got 18 plus years of age, 10 plus 2 years of formal education, good communication language skills, verbal and written, basic computer knowledge, ability to deliver quality customer service, and then we've got some details of the company that has advertised the job at the bottom. So I've got some questions that we can go through together and see if we can find the answers as we have a look at this job ad. So the first one is to think about, well, who was the advertisement posted by? And if you look through, you can see down here this information towards the bottom of the screen. It says it was a recruitment agency, Aspirations Business Consulting. So they're the recruitment agency who have advertised the job. So that tells you something, that you'll actually be applying to a recruitment agency rather than to a specific company. And what is the job? Well, we've got here, it says call center and BPO jobs. So I think we can assume from this information that we would be looking at the job of a call center operative. I think that's the job that we can see from here. And minimum qualifications. Well, it tells us here that you have to be 18 years plus of age and have 10 plus 2 years of formal education. So we can assume from that that they would be looking for someone with A-levels or a higher school certificate, HSC or equivalent, something like that, based on this information. And also, does it tell us anything about the language proficiency that's required? I can see something here that says good communication and language skills, but it doesn't go anything further than that. So it doesn't tell us whether we need to have a particularly good level of English or another language. Does it say anything about computer skills? Well, if we look here, it does say basic computer knowledge is required. So we know that we need to have some kind of computer knowledge. Also, does it mention anything about interpersonal skills? So let's have a look. Ability to deliver quality customer service, good communication, language skills, verbal and written. I think we can assume from there that that means good interpersonal skills. Interpersonal skills are the way that we're able to relate to other people. And does it give us anything information about the salary? No, it doesn't. So I think by looking at this job ad, we have been able to find some information, but potentially not all the information that we're looking for. So it does talk about qualifications. It mentioned that you need to have a higher certificate. It does mention basic communication skills. It has something about language, but it doesn't give us a proficiency level. And it does say something about interpersonal skills. But it doesn't tell us anything about the salary, the timing, the company details, or the job location. So that's certainly information that you would need to find out if you were to apply to the recruitment agency to find out more details about this job. So as well as decoding the job ad, it's important for us to decode some words that will often be familiar to job adverts. So here, the word is team building. Well, what does team building actually mean? And we've got down here that in order to be a good team player and then be able to do this, you need to have excellent interpersonal skills. And I mentioned that this word interpersonal means our ability to get on with and communicate well with other people. So if you're friendly, warm, confident, you're a good listener, you can listen actively, you can communicate well, then you have good interpersonal skills. Team building also means an ability to work with others. So that links into interpersonal skills, but it also means, are you able to share information, to work on tasks that are part of a bigger plan? Are you able to ask others for work, be involved in their work as well? This is the idea of working together. And then can accept suggestions made by others. So if you're a good team player, there will be times when other people in the team will make suggestions to you. Are you able to listen to them, to process what they've said, and to change your behavior based on that? So these are all really important skills that make up team building. And you can mention these skills at the job interview and also when you're writing your covering letter and CV, and we'll talk about that a bit later. So another word that's often used is communication skills. And what does this mean? Well, effective in verbal and written communication. So if any of you came to my webinar earlier this week, we talked quite a lot about this and how communication is both verbal, spoken, it's written, but also non-verbal as well. The way that you use your eyes, your body language, these are really important to the way that you communicate. It will be important to have a good use of English. English is the lingua franca. It's used all over the world as the language of communication, and it's important that you can prove that you've got good English skills. That you can listen and understand. Listening is just as important for communication as speaking or writing, and the ability to actively listen. And by that I mean when the other person is speaking, do you acknowledge that they're speaking to you? Do you nod? Do you look at do you make eye contact? Do you write notes? Are you able to show that you're really listening, not just sort of paying the person the compliment of listening to them, but are you actually understanding what they're saying? And then finally, communication skills are around the ability to read and interpret information as well. So all these skills make up communication skills. Now, I should say that when we study for the Beck exam, and I'm going to give you more information about the Beck exam at the end of this course, one of the great things about studying for Beck is you do learn about real-life business communication skills. And you can see that this is a question that's been taken from the Beck listening exam, which is all about job vacancies and people responding to them. So it's important that you know that when you prepare for Beck, you will also be preparing and learning about these real-life skills. So I think this slide is really important, and it's true to say that first impressions are so important. I spoke about these earlier this week, but when you apply for a job, when you send in your CV, curriculum vitae, resume, these all words mean the same thing. The employers will receive literally hundreds, if not thousands of CVs, and they will only have around 5 seconds to review your CV. And in that time, they're looking to understand what sort of person you are and that you're worth interviewing. So it's really important that you write everything out in a really clear, precise, accurate way so that you can get your best intentions across to the employer when you hand in your CV. I should mention that many companies, as well as asking for a CV, may well ask you to fill in a specific application form. A lot of the information in that application form will be the same as the information in your CV, which is great because you've got a reference and you can copy and paste into the application. But you might have to include other things, such as a personal statement. And a personal statement will often be a description of why you are the right person for the job. And it's really important that if you are asked to write a personal statement, you make it specific to the job that you're that's been advertised. We say here, you've only got 5 seconds to look through your application. A good recruiter will know if you've just copied and pasted the same piece of information into lots of job adverts. It's very clear. So make sure if you do have to write a personal statement or in your covering letter, you are very specific about the job that you are applying for. So as I mentioned, because you've only got 5 seconds or around about that time with the recruiter, you have to make sure that you get noticed. And in order to do that, your CV or your application form must be free from errors. That means errors in terms of grammar, vocabulary, spelling, that kind of thing, but also the way that the information is laid out. Make sure there are no typos, there's no formatting errors, and make sure that the all the dates, etc., that you've put in there are accurate and work well. It's also important that you mention all the skills and attributes that are required for the job. Remember, you need to be specific to the requirements of the job. But it's also important that you write all this information in a clear and succinct way. The employer does not want to see a novel from you. They want to, remember, in 5 minutes, understand that you have all the attributes that they require for the job. And so to do that, I'm going to give you some hints and tips now about writing a CV. As I mentioned before, it might be called a CV, a curriculum vitae, or even a resume, and perhaps in India you have other phrases, but these all mean generally the same thing. This is a resource that's used by an employer to see information as to whether you have the right skills for the job or not. So I've put 2 columns here, yes and no. Yes meaning information that we should include in our CV, and no meaning information that we should avoid. So first of all, let's go through the yeses. So it's really important that you put your contact information, because if you don't add your contact information, they won't be able to get in touch with you for a job interview. So contact information should really be your name, your address, a telephone number to be contacted on, and an email address, and that's sufficient. You should give all details of your education in chronological order, going back from the qualifications you took when you were 16, if you took GCSEs, O-levels or equivalent, your A-levels or higher certificate, also if you've been to university or college, the details of that, and any postgraduate courses you've got. You should put down the name of the institution, the qualifications you've got, the dates, and also the level of the qualification, whether it was a grade A, B, C or 2-1 or whatever. You should also add details of any honours and awards you've achieved. So if you achieved an award for the best student, or if you entered any competitions and won awards academically, that should be in there as well. You should put in any keywords related to the job and skills that you have. So if it's asking for somebody who's a good team player with great communication skills, you can mention this in your CV, mention the fact that you've got these skills. You should put in details of any workshops or seminars that are relevant to the job. I say relevant because I've seen CVs that literally have 1 or 2 pages worth of seminars and workshops. No one's going to read all that. But if there are specific workshops that will help to show that you've got the skills required for the job that you're applying for, yeah, you should mention those, again, in chronological order with the dates, etc. Any particular experience or volunteer work or job experience that you've had, that should be put in there as well, together with a list of any work experience that you've got. Or indeed internships. They're just as important for work experience. What I would say when you're writing down your work experience is try not to have any gaps. So when someone's looking at your CV, they're looking to see when you went to education, what happened when you finished education, if you've had jobs before, when were they? And if there's a gap, maybe a 6-month gap between two jobs, they're going to ask you at the interview why there was that gap. And so you need to be ready to answer that. It might be that one job finished and it took you 6 months to find another job. Maybe you did some more training. Whatever it is, be prepared for them to ask you those questions at the interview. Now, ideally, the CV should not be longer than 2 pages. So that's, if you're going to use one sheet of A4, that's printed on both sides. It shouldn't be anything longer than that. Also, something that you should have on here are your references, your referees at the bottom of the CV. Who is the company going to contact? But information that you don't need, likes and dislikes, is not relevant. Hobbies, not relevant. Stories about your school and college days, no. No, we don't want colourful and stylish fonts. We want it to be clear, straightforward. No background designs, please. We don't want any details of your family or anything that you did before you came to school. So just keep it factual, relevant, focused on the job, no longer than two pages, and check to make sure that everything is in chronological order. And if there are any gaps, you can explain them should you have the opportunity to go to an interview. Now, it's also important that you understand how to identify your skills. And there are 3 main types of skills. We've got professional, personal, and transferable. So let's have a look at professional skills first. These will generally relate to a specific job. They might be easily recognizable, but they would be difficult to transfer to another job unless it's exactly the same kind of job. So, for example, if you've got skills in using a particular type of machinery, or if you've got skills in using a particular computer language or a particular type of software, then that's specific to a company. I don't mean software like Word or Excel. I mean software that's specific to a particular job. Then that would be classed as professional skills. Then we've got transferable skills. And these are skills, as the name suggests, that can be used across a number of different jobs. So they're not specific in the same way that professional skills are. So transferable skills may be things like communication skills, the ability to multitask, to delegate, excellent communication skills, things like this. But do remember that if you're in an interview and you've put down that you've got excellent time management skills, for example, be prepared for the interviewer to ask you a question about that, because you have to be able to prove everything that you've put down. So if you've added a transferable skill to your CV, be ready to answer a question about that in the interview. And then finally, we've got personal skills. So these are skills that you have, they're innate within you. Things like being alert, being hardworking, honest, dedicated. These are all great examples of personal skills. But just like those transferable skills, be ready to answer questions. If you've said you're hardworking, be ready for the interviewer to ask you, well, could you give me an example of how you can prove you're hardworking? Because think about it this way. Everybody's going to put lots of positive things about themselves down in their job advert, in the job advertisement and the job application. And so you have to be ready to justify why you've added those skills in your application. So it's really important for you to identify what your skills are based on what we've said on that previous slide. How do you categorize your skills? How can you show to an employer that you've really got what it takes? Okay, so generally, as part of the application process, you will be expected to write a covering letter or email. It might be that this is just the initial communication, and then the company will send you details of an application form to fill in, for example, but it is really important that you write a good covering letter or email. Remember that this covering letter, it introduces you to the organization, it introduces your CV or resume, it explains exactly why you are applying for the position, and it provides specific evidence and insight into why you should be interviewed. So it's really important that you take the time to write a really good covering letter. And remember, just like the personal statement, companies will be able to pick up really quickly if you have simply used the same covering letter, generic covering letter for lots of different jobs. You need to personalize it for the position that you're applying for. So here are some hints and tips that you can use as part of the covering letter. The first thing to bear in mind is that you should try to keep it fairly short. Now, I mentioned that a CV should ideally not be longer than 2 pages. And it's the same with a covering letter. It might be that you're able to get all the information onto one side of A4, or it might be that you need to go over onto a second sheet of A4. It is important that you include all the information that is relevant to the job, but again, you're not writing an essay or a novel. It needs to be to the point. You should always start by saying why you've applied for the post. And at this point, you might also want to give more information as to where you saw the job advert. So you might want to start like, you know, dear sir or madam, I'm applying for the position of a call center operative, which I saw advertised on, and then give the details of the website. And then you would give some details of why you've applied for the job. You should draw attention to the most relevant points in your CV. It's really important. So you could start by saying, you know, as you will be able to see from my CV, I have a lot of experience in some aspect of the job, or maybe you've got some specific qualifications or experience that you can mention there. You should also stress the main qualities that are relevant to the job as well. So if it's asking for somebody who's got great time management skills, mention that and give an example. And then you should also refer to future contact between you and the company. So something like, I look forward to receiving more information from you in the coming days, or something like that. You may also, if you've got space and time, finish with some a few sentences about your interests and hobbies, just to give them a little bit more insight into who you are. But that really depends on how much you've written. But I think the really important points here are that you've got to make the letter specific to the job that you're applying for, pull out some important points from the job advert, pull out some important things from your CV that you would like to mention, and make sure that that's all included in the letter. It's your one chance to make that great first impression and to get that job interview. So just referring back to the BEC exam, I mentioned an activity before that you would do in the listening exam, which covered the topic of job interviews. But this is an example taken from the writing part of the exam, where you've been asked to write some details for a CV. So again, this just shows to you that when you start preparing for BEC, you're going to learn about some really important skills that you need in everyday life. And this is another example taking from a reading part of the exam, all about people are applying for jobs and how to write a good CV. So there are some things that you need to do before you send your application. One really important thing, I know it sounds very obvious, but you must check your CV and covering letter before you send it. My advice to you would be to write your CV and covering letter, leave it for 24 hours if you've got the time, or leave it certainly for a few hours, come back to it, read it again, check through it. You might find that you want to change some information. You might find that you've missed something. If you have the opportunity, leave it again, come back and check it later, and then send it. Okay, you don't want to rush. You want to make sure that you've included everything. I would also recommend showing your CV and letter to colleagues, friends, maybe your teacher or or family members, so that you can get their advice as well to make sure that you've covered everything. Okay. You should also enclose any information that the company's asked for. It might be that as part of the application process, they've asked you to include some certificates or a reference. So if they check to make sure that if they have asked you to include something that you have, and then take a deep breath, post that letter or send the email, and in the knowledge that you've done everything you can to prepare and get ready for the job. Okay, well, I really hope that some of those hints and tips will help you to write a really good resume and covering letter, and to decode those job adverts, and will help you in your goal to get a job. But once your email is your application has been received, hopefully you're going to be successful, and that means that you're going to have a job interview. And I know that job interviews are something that people feel very nervous about, including me, of course. So in this part of the presentation, we're going to understand a little bit more about how recruitment works. We're going to prepare for an interview, how to present your best self, and knowing the kinds of questions that you might be asked. Well, first of all, thinking about the recruitment process of an organization. Often you'll find that there are more than one round for an interview. When I say round, I mean that there might be an initial stage where a larger number of candidates, you could be called. Perhaps you have to give a short presentation using a webinar tool. It might be that you have a short interview, and then there will be a further stage of interview after that, potentially, where you will be asked more detailed questions, and there may well be a final interview as well. It'd be interesting for you to find out how many stages of interview there are and how long they will take. It's also really interesting for you to find out before the interview if there's anything specific that you will need to do. In some interviews, for example, you need to make a presentation, and it's good if you can find out as much information as you can before the interview takes place. So let's talk a little bit about how you can prepare for an interview. And I think the first thing that's really important is that you do some research on the company where you will be applying for a job, so that you can do lots of research online for this. So find out, for example, what's the background to the organization? What's their history? What industry are they in? Are they a big player? Or are they a well-known brand? What competition do they have? What's the culture of the company where you'll be organizing, you'll be working? Have they been in the news for any particular reason? Have you checked through their website in detail? And have you got any information about the people who work for the organization? It's really important that when you go into the interview, you have some knowledge about the organization. You can also use this research to write out some questions about the organization, because there's bound to be time at the end of the interview where they ask you if you have any questions, or they might even ask you a question at the beginning, which is, what do you know about the organization? And it's great if you can give them some facts and figures, which proves that you've really looked at the company and you're really serious. One thing I would never do, though, I've interviewed people where they have gone online, looked at my LinkedIn profile, and then give me some details about me in the interview. It doesn't work, and it doesn't work for a number of reasons. First of all, the interview is about them, not about me. I'm doing the interviews. I want to employ someone. So they shouldn't be giving me, and secondly, it feels a little bit strange. It feels uncomfortable to know that somebody has been online and has been researching you as part of that job. It gave me a negative impression of the people that I was interviewing. So by all means, go on to LinkedIn and have a look at the people that you are going to be interviewed by, but don't tell them in the interview that you've researched them and give them information about themselves. That won't go down well. Then you should think about carrying all the relevant documentation with you to the interview. It may well be that before the interview you've been given a list of things that you might need to bring with you. It's quite usual to bring with, for example, copies of all your qualifications. You might have to get a photocopy of your driving license or passport. So have everything with you in a bag so that you can hand over that very quickly and not panic when you arrive. Make travel arrangements, okay? The last thing you want to do is get lost and arrive late for the interview. You'll be hot, bothered, and instead of having the time before the interview to stay calm and focus on the types of questions and the information that you want to say, you'll be too busy thinking about the fact that you only just managed to make it, okay? You must never be late, okay? No excuse is ever going to be good enough for why you've been late. So make those travel arrangements in advance and make sure that you arrive in plenty of time so that you can, moving on to the last picture, organize your thoughts before the interview. My advice in organizing your thoughts would be to think of some really good examples from your working life that you are able to use in a number of different situations. So I mentioned that during the interview, you're going to be asked some questions about your working life and your experience, okay? And you're going to be asked to give examples of how you meet certain job criteria or why you've got certain skills, okay? Think of some really good examples. If you haven't had a job yet, you can think of some great examples from your student life. Think of examples of how you've communicated well, how you've solved a problem, how you've worked together with others, how you've demonstrated great communication skills. And if you've got 3 or 4 really good examples, then it doesn't matter so much what the questions are, because you'll always have something ready that you can use in an answer. But in saying that, you must make sure that all your answers are relevant. Nobody wants you to give an answer which has no bearing on the question that's been asked. But think of some really good examples that you can use as part of the interview process. And then the other thing that you should think of course, is how you present yourself. And for those of you who came to the business etiquette webinar I gave earlier, you'll know all about this. Basically, think about the dress code. You can see in this picture that everybody is wearing formal clothing. It is important that you look your best when you attend an interview and that your clothing is formal. I can see in this picture that there's one gentleman who hasn't got a tie on and one gentleman who's got a tie on but it's not buttoned up. That's not good advice. The gentleman in the middle who's got a nice shirt and tie all buttoned up, that looks really good, and you can see that the ladies are wearing professional office attire, so that looks great. Think of course as well about your personal grooming, and that's why it's important for you to be at the interview with plenty of time. You may wish to comb your hair or put some makeup on or get ready, make sure that you're nice and cool and you look relaxed and confident. You must always have a professional manner. And that's the way that you carry yourself, the way that you stand, the way that you shake hands when you go into the interview room, the use of eye contact, make sure that you look energetic and confident and respectful. And then finally, as we mentioned on the previous slide, do all that preparation. If you are well prepared for the interview, if you know all about the job and the company where you'll be working, and you've got some great examples that you can use to answer a variety of questions, you're going to feel much more confident in that interview room. So moving on to think about some of the questions that might be asked. one question that often comes up is, why would you like to work for us? And you really should prepare an answer for this in advance. So think about the research you've done, that you know about the company. Perhaps they have a great reputation. They might be a market leader. Might be that the job attracted you because you feel that you've got the perfect skills match. It might be that you've always looked for a job, or this is your preferred career. Think of some great examples of why you would like to work for them. Next, can you give an example of how you've dealt with a problem? Okay, this is often a question that's often comes up. It might not be a problem. It might say, can you give an example of how you've shown great communication skills, or how you've worked well with others? And this is an opportunity for you to give a great example of how you've met, in this case, a problem. So it could be if you've not been at work, it could be a problem from your personal experience. It could be a problem that you had at university that you had to deal with. But have some examples up your sleeve for how you can answer questions like this. And then a question that I think is a very difficult question, but it is often asked, is what would you say are your strengths and weaknesses? It's important here that when you talk about weaknesses, you try to talk about them in a positive way. So it might be, for example, you could say that one of your weaknesses is that you have a very strong attention to detail, and that you often need to check documents many times before you are ready for them to go out. Okay, you could say that it's negative because it takes you time to do all the proofreading, but also it could also be seen as a strength because having a good attention to detail is a great asset. So be careful when thinking about strengths and weaknesses, but do think about them in advance so that you have them ready should a question like this be asked of you. And other questions that will come up will generally be related to the job. So it will be around the skills that are required for the job. It might be asking you how you can prove that you've got the experience or the personal skills needed. Yeah. And again, in the interview room, you should always listen actively, nod, get eye contact with the interviewers, make sure that they know that you're aware at all times, make sure that you engage. If it's a panel of 2 or 3 people, that you engage everybody, that you give full answers. The other thing that I would say as well is that if you are asked a question and you really don't know how to answer it, it's always a good idea to ask for clarification in the interview. The worst thing that you can do is make up an answer which obviously appears to be wrong or incorrect. You can say things like, can I just check that I've understood that question correctly? Or, I'm sorry, could you phrase this in a slightly different way, for example? There are ways and means that you can use to get clarification. And in doing so, you also get a few more seconds to think about your answer as well. So we're coming towards the end of the presentation now, and I just wanted to give you a time to reflect on the things that we've looked at today. So we've talked at length about the different ways that you can apply for a job, how we can decode a job advert to find out exactly what they're looking for, the information that's provided, how you can decode certain classic phrases like team working and good communication skills and show that you've got those skills, how you can describe your skills and the different types of skills, professional, interpersonal, and personal skills. We looked at how to write a good CV and covering letter. And then we've just spoken about the skills that you need when you're attending an interview. So take a look at yourself in the mirror. And have you got what it takes, do you think, to communicate well and be confident in an interview? Certainly practice makes perfect, but I hope that by looking at some of the skills and tips and tips that I've given you, you'll be able to improve your opportunities of getting that job. Really, it all boils down to having great language and communication skills and confidence. Of course, knowledge is really important as well. But if you've done your research, you've done your homework, you'll feel confident. And if you've got good English communication skills, if you've managed to practice having an interview, writing a covering letter, taking a qualification like Beck, then it's going to be much easier for you to communicate in a positive way and to get that job. So, are you equipped with good communication skills? Even if you possess excellent communication skills, how are you going to prove it to the employer? And if you don't have particularly good communication skills, how are you going to go about improving them? Well, for those of you who've been on my webinars earlier this week and last week, you'll know that taking a qualification such as Beck, a business English certificate, is a great way to build your confidence and prove your skills to the world. These are interactive exams that I've mentioned that use real world communication skills, and there's lots of support to help you prepare, such as this fantastic app which has been developed specifically for our Beck students in India. So these are internationally recognized qualifications. Employers, over 25,000 employers all over the world know and use the Beck qualifications. They're available at 3 levels, so everybody can take the exam, whether you're not feeling particularly confident about your English, all the way to up to those who are really confident. The exam covers reading, writing, listening and speaking skills. And this is something called the CEFR. It's a common European framework of languages. And it shows that these are different levels from pre-A1, which are people who have very, very limited knowledge of English, up to C2, which is basically someone who's very fluent and confident in the language. And you can see that the 3 Beck qualifications are good for people who have a lower intermediate, upper intermediate, or an advanced level of English. So when you prepare for Beck, you also learn about lots of really important business skills, and I hope I've shown you some of those today. So you will learn about things like socializing and networking, attending meetings, giving presentations, writing reports, telephone skills, problem solving, negotiation, decision making, and of course, just like today, about how to write covering letters, how to write CVs, and how to perform well in a job interview. So in taking something like Beck, you have the opportunity to really build your English communication skills and show how confident you are using the language. You'll also be able to enhance your CV, and remember how important that is. Thousands of CVs and only 5 seconds per CV. So if you can add details of a Beck qualification from the University of Cambridge, from Cambridge Assessment English, then that really shows that you've got what it takes. And by passing Beck, it means that you've got drive, determination, that you can work hard, you can analyze difficult problems and problem solve them. And these are all great skills that will be required when you're in your working life. So that's it from me today. We've just got some details on the slide here of where you can find some great practice materials for the Beck qualifications. But if you do have any questions about anything I've said today, or about how you can prepare for work or prepare for a job interview.
While Ian spoke about Beck, we are going to be offering through Scope. It's called LinguaSkill. So I'll just run you through those. So for people who want to additional information, please fill in the feedback. Ma'am, Megha Shah is asking, where can we find the LinguaSkill form? Meg Shah.
Yes, Meg Shah. You can contact Scope office and you will have all the details. If you're a student, you have to contact your Scope coordinator or your principal, and they will definitely guide you. And more information you can get from us also.
Okay, and then there was another question: how do we enroll for a Scope program? What is the process of Scope admission for English course? I think they just need to get in touch with you, and then you will guide them from there. Am I right, ma'am?
Yes, yes. And students, do one thing. The link is there. Kindly fill it, because there is some question regarding what you expect from Scope, which type of webinar or which type of knowledge do you want to, so that we can accordingly plan for the future. ગુજરાતી સ્ટુડન્ટ્સ માટે કહું કે લિંક તમે ખાસ ભરજો, એમાં જે ક્વેશ્ચન્સ આપેલા છે એ ફિલ કરજો, કારણ કે તમે શું ઈચ્છો છો સ્કોપ આગળથી અને તમારે શું શીખવું છે એ અમને તમે જો લિંક ભરીને આપશો, ફૂલ લિંક અને તમારી ડિટેલ્સ, તો અમે ફ્યુચરમાં જે પણ પ્રોગ્રામ કરશું અને તમારે જે પણ શીખવું છે એ અમે તમને પીરસી શકશું. સો પ્લીઝ do write your response and fill the link shown above. And બીજો કોઈ પણ ક્વેશ્ચન હોય તમે ચેટ બોક્સમાં તમે આપી શકો છો, we can answer them. અને સ્લાઇડમાં અત્યારે અમારા કોન્ટેક્ટ નંબર પણ છે, અમારી સોશિયલ મીડિયાની બધી લિંક્સ આપેલી છે. You just have a photograph of it or you can write it down so that તમને જે પણ ઇન્ફોર્મેશન જોતી હોય તમને બધી જ પ્રોવાઈડ થશે.
Okay. I think that is good that people will take either a screenshot or you click, you can write to them at the email query.scopegujarat@gmail.com, or you can call them on that telephone number that's mentioned there. Somebody is asking, two people have actually asked, what's the cost of the Beck app? It's a free app. It's BEC. It is the Beck app. So you just need to go to the Play Store or this thing, and you can search for the Beck app from Cambridge. It will help you also in preparing for LinguaSkill. How to improve confidence for an interview? I think there was a video that we played. I mean, Ian mentioned that you have to practice. I would again play a small video for you that we have here. You can, I mean, we played at the beginning of the webinar. I will give that link to you all. You could play that again and see. It is about practice. You could get somebody to practice with you, get a friend, get a parent, get a professor, somebody in your team, somebody whom you trust to give you a formal, proper feedback to do an interview with you. And once they have done that, it will be useful for you to be able, you will be able to get a feedback of what you are doing under the situation.
Yes,
ma'am, please.
what I want to add, જે પણ સ્ટુડન્ટ્સ ને પોતાનું ઇંગ્લિશ ઇમ્પ્રુવ કરવું છે એ લોકો એક ગ્રુપ બનાવે, રાઈટ, અને દે શુડ ડિસાઇડ કે આ 6 days we will speak in English only. જેવું પણ આવડે એવું ઇંગ્લિશ તમે બોલશો અને 7મા દિવસે તમે ખાલી તમારી મધર ટંગ એટલે કે ગુજરાતી તમે વાપરજો. અને 6 દિવસ જો આ ફ્રેન્ડ્સ તમે એક ગ્રુપ બનાવીને કોઈ પણ ડિસ્કશન તમે કરી શકો, રિસેન્ટ કોઈ બી ટોપિક હોય, પોલિટિક્સ હોય, તમારા ઇન્ટરેસ્ટ હોય, હોબી હોય, અથવા તો રૂટીન તમે જે પણ ફોન ઉપર વાત કરો છો તમારા ફ્રેન્ડ સાથે, ટ્રાય ટુ સ્પીક ઇન ઇંગ્લિશ. તો આફ્ટર સર્ટન ટાઈમ તમે ઓપન અપ થઈ જશો અને આપોઆપ વર્ડ્સ તમારા ઇંગ્લિશમાં બહાર આવવા માંડશે. અને આ રીતે તમારી જે ડર છે, ફોબિયા છે ઇંગ્લિશ માટેનો કે હું ઇંગ્લિશ નહીં બોલી શકું, દેટ વિલ બી ડેફિનેટલી રિમૂવ. અને એક દિવસ તમારો માતૃભાષાના રાખો કે એના પર આપણે ટચમાં રહી શકીએ. સો આ એક મારા તરફથી એક સજેશન છે કે તમે આવી રીતે પણ તમારું ઇંગ્લિશ ઇમ્પ્રુવ કરી શકો અને કોન્ફિડન્સ લેવલ તમે પ્રાપ્ત કરી શકો. યસ.
Thank you, ma'am. Somebody is asking, Mayuri Thakur is asking, can we practice online and appear for mock interview practice? There are certain organizations or apps that provide that, but that's at a charge. There is an app that Cambridge has developed. It's called Speak and Improve. It's just speak and symbol with improve, speak and improve. There you can actually go and practice your speaking, just general speaking. How do you pronounce? How do you stress? It gives you feedback. It's a live engine that we have developed. It's a live software. It helps you improve your speaking. Speakandimprove.org is the link. You can try that out, Mayuri. Speak and improve, and not an as A and D and, it's the symbol and. Sachin is asking us how to respond if HR questions and we are really not aware of the answer, how to answer. Sometimes it is, HR are also humans, they understand that if you say you don't know. But it's about how you say. I think Ian spoke about it. Somebody had also asked about what do I talk about my weaknesses. Ian did mention that. You talk of your weakness if you have got attention in a positive way. You don't say that's my weakness, but you say because of this I do these things to improve myself, or I look at it this way. Somebody's asking, individuals approaching from Maharashtra. I think there are learning centers in Maharashtra also that are running these programs, but I think we should give the credit to the government of Gujarat, because they have taken the lead in this initiative all across India. We know, I mean, other states are just beginning to follow. Another state recently joined the list, but I think we should give this initiative to the Gujarat government. They have been leading on it. In Maharashtra, there are private learning providers. The certificate, there are multiple questions about the certificate. As I told you, it takes some time for us to generate a certificate. And the certificate is not generated to everyone who logs in. It attends to, if somebody attends a specific period of time, then the certificate is sent to them. It will be sent to you by email. That's a soft copy. There's not a hard copy. I have given scope placement test. Will it help me get any job? Placement test is basically a test to understand your current level of English. It is not a proof of what you have learned. After you do a learning and after you achieve a certificate for that, that's what will be more helpful than a placement test.
Yeah, but you can appear for lingua skills. That will be definitely helpful to you.
Yes. Megha Shah is asking, is this certificate useful to us? I think it is, because we did play a video at the beginning about something that Air France talks about, where the training manager Air France says this certificate is something that they use to filter. I can tell you there are many companies like Air France that actually use lingua skill when they are filtering candidates for hiring their jobs. Mayuri is asking us, is this similar to, I mean, is Bullets available? No, Bullets is no longer available. Cambridge has withdrawn Bullets, and we are no longer using Bullets. Being an interviewer, you like a frank candidate or a professional one? Personally, I would like a professional one, because a frank one may not fit into the organization because he's too frank and he's too straightforward. So that is something I would prefer, but that preference would vary from person to person. Ma'am, would you want to add on it?
Definitely, it will judge you and your personality, whether you are fake or not, because you have to be true to yourself as well as true to the panelist also.
Somebody actually had asked, does accent matter? I don't think accent does, but if you're talking to a foreigner, if you don't have a bit of an accent, they won't understand well. But if you're talking to an Indian, an accent is just a useless addition to your language. If somebody is saying, I don't have somebody around me who can communicate in English, I think the choice is yours. First, you need to increase your English, listen to English programs, and then, of course, you have a telephone. I mean, today you have media, you have the social media, yes, where you can learn English. You can use that to communicate with people. You don't have to.
Even you can record your voice, any topic you guess, and you can have a recorded record on your phone, and then you listen. Then you can come to know where you are, your grammar is incorrect, or where you have not correctly used the language. So it is not necessary that you have a group of people and then you can learn English. You can learn English on your own also, right? So it is like this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Everything is possible if you stand in front of mirror and you can practice also. Nobody is required to learn English. Only the motivation is needed. And if you are asking such question, it shows that you have that capacity and that motivation inside you. So bring it out, and the sky is the limit for you.
Yeah, I mean, see, if somebody has the drive, then sky is your limit. You will be able to reach the highest points. I mean, and we know that our country is full of people who have worked and who have achieved greatness because of sheer work. And I think Gujarat as a state stands out, right from the father of the nation to the leader of the nation today, are from Gujarat, and not because of anything special that they have. I think it's more to do with their hard work and the drive. And I always believe, you know, I have traveled across India. I'll give that credit to people from Gujarat. The drive and the hard work that you guys put in is very different to the other parts of the country. Because I've seen that.
Yes, and one more thing I want to add that education department I am very much grateful to Anju Madam, who is our Principal Secretary, Higher and Technical Education, and Mr. M. Nagarajan, who is Director of Higher Education. Without their support, this program could not happen. So I'm really thankful for both these people and the Education Department and Government of Gujarat to have such an initiative and to promote this program. So I'm really thankful to these people, and even the even Joshua and Manish Puri, who has given us the support for such a kind platform and such a wonderful platform and the webinar series. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Yeah,
Thank you, children.
You very much.
Have a nice day and stay safe.
Thank you.